protagonist of this story, a young social worker named Emily, set out to solve the mystery of the disappearances. Faced with the indifference of the locals and the resistance of the locals and the resistance of the new caretaker, she realized that something terrible lurks behind the walls of the orphanage, behind the walls of the old orphanage. Forgotten by time and overgrown with cobwebs, there was a story that the horror stories of my childhood had bypassed. The small orphanage, mysteriously buried in the woods, as if left to its own devices, seemed to portend something sinister. As the mystery unfolded, Emily discovered underground tunnels leading deeper into the woods and old diaries full of the dark writings of previous caretakers. The story hidden in these records was eerie. Children would disappear without a trace, and no one ever knew what happened to them. The orphanage was a home for children deprived of parental care and love. The old walls shook in the wind, and the shadows cast by the trees hid secrets that should never have come out. Following the trail of the terrible truth, Emily got on the trail of her predecessors, uncovering a terrifying secret. In the depths of the orphanage, an underground space was discovered where the dark souls of the past tormented the children in their sinister games. In torture and suffering, the children lost their souls, becoming part of the darkness that surrounded the orphanage. Emily decided to finally break this hellish cycle by calling in the help of the police and children's rights organizations. But one day, when a new caretaker, grim and sullen, took charge of the orphanage, something changed. Children began to disappear without a trace. As if consumed by the shadow of the orphanage itself, the asylum was left in ashes and oblivion as a grim reminder that evil sometimes hides under the mask of good, and horror can penetrate even the most defenseless corners of the human soul. Traces of violence and suffering revealed a terrible truth. The children were victims of cruel experiments conducted to find the source of immortality. The caretaker of the orphanage, turned into a ruthless monster, used the children as objects of his macabre research. The last night at the orphanage was filled with screams, moans, and terror. The fire that broke out in the orphanage burned not only the sinister structure, but also the secrets it held. Emily was able to save those she could, but there was a horror left in her memory that she could never forget.